Hey guys, good evening. Welcome to the class. Do we have all of us here? How is your preparation going for grade 10th? You have boards very soon, right? Good evening, good evening. Welcome. Welcome to the class. How's your preparation going? Is it coming well? I think I know many of you from here. Okay, great. Oh, great. Okay, guys. So let's quickly dig into the chapter. Today, this is the second class in the series. And today we are discussing control and coordination. Okay, so let's see what we must be knowing in this chapter. And in between, like the same last class, we'll be discussing what in the chapter needs to be understood, and while doing that we'll also be doing certain questions from within. Okay, so this is a brief overview of what you need to understand. I remember the run. I remember. Okay, so in the nervous system, we break down the nervous system into CNS and PNS. But before doing that, you must be aware about the structure of the neuron. Very important. Okay, so structure of the neuron is very important. It can be asked in several ways. They might ask you to label it, or they can simply ask you to draw a structure of a neuron. You should be well aware with the structure of the neuron. What in the structure of neuron? The dendrites, the cyton, the axon terminals. Okay, now the nervous system is divided into two parts. Suman, control and control means being able to regulate how the body is working, and coordination means a synchronism between the various controls. For example, when your heart is beating, it's pumping the blood across the arteries, right? At the same time, your muscles extract the oxygen from it. So everything is regulated. When you are seeing an animal advance towards you, you raise your hand, maybe to just charm him, or you turn your feet away to run away from it, right? So that is coordination. So two or more systems act in synchrony so that you can produce a viable result. Now, stimulus is any change in responding, Ankit. Okay, so nervous system gathers the stimulus, interprets it, and produces a response. So we have divided the nervous system into two, CNS and PNS. CNS, the central nervous system, comprises the brain and spinal cord. You need to know the three parts of the brain: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Also, in the forebrain, you need to understand the cerebrum. Okay, and that cerebrum has several regions: the frontal, the parietal, the occipital, the temporal. You need to know these all. In the midbrain, you need to know the function of the midbrain. And then last comes the hindbrain. Saurav, you are asking what's nervous system. Wow. You do know that we have exams in like next, what, a month, right? So nervous system simply tackles the job of control and coordination in our body. Then we have the hindbrain, where you have pons, you have the cerebellum, and you have the medulla oblongata. So make sure you know all these parts and their function. Farheen, CNS comprises the brain and the spinal cord, where the task of integration is happening. Parathyroid is a gland stress that is associated with the calcium metabolism. It releases parathyroid hormone, which raises the blood calcium level. Okay, Rishu, endocrine system has to do with the hormonal regulations in your body. They are a system which are comprising of the glands and their chemical secretions that regulates your entire body, several body metabolism parts. Then you need to know the difference between white matter and gray matter. So we know that white matter is formed by the axons, whereas gray matter is formed by the cytons. Then the spinal cord. Here you only need to know the brief about the spinal cord and not the detail. Then reflex action and reflex arc. So reflex action is a response that is produced by your body without involving the brain, right? Yeah, calcitonin is opposite to PTS. You can say that supreme. But who will tell me what gland releases calcitonin? What gland releases calcitonin? Go ahead. Okay, yes, that's correct. That's the thyroid hormone. Sorry, the thyroid gland. Okay, see, the gray matter and white matter is just how we look at the neuron. The exons, they are the white matter. They appear white under a microscope because of slightly whitish because of the myelin sheath. And the gray matter, the cytons, they appear a tad bit grayish. That's the difference. Okay. Then in the the PNS, you need to know somatic and autonomic. Somatic caters to the um, the skeletal muscles, and autonomic caters to the involuntary actions. Then we can have sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic autonomic nervous system basically caters to actions that make sure that you have the available uh, energy, whereas parasympathetic does the opposite. Then, while studying the nervous system, you should also be aware about the control and coordination that happens in plants. Okay, very important. Acetylcholine, Preeti, is a neurotransmitter. Okay, it is what that transcends the message between two neurons. Okay, so acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter. It will transmit the information from the one neuron to the other. Okay, reflex action, brain has got no role. Okay, phytohormones, the hormones of the plant are called phytohormones. Diagram of a brain, no. They will not ask you to draw a diagram of brain, though it might come to recognize the lobes, frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal. Okay, cool. Okay, then while dealing with the plants, we have the hormones auxin, gibberellin, and cytokinin, and ethylene and abscisic acid. Now, very important, auxin, gibberellin, and cytokinin increase the growth in plants, where ethylene and abscisic acid are reducing the growth of plants. Okay, now tropic movements and nastic movements, very important. Tropic movements are those that are regulated by the direction or towards the direction of the stimulus, like chemotropism towards a chemical, phototropism towards light, geotropism uh, towards gravity, hydrotropism towards water, thigmo towards touch. Which all diagrams? Wolf, I will cater to that. Don't worry. Then comes the endocrine system. You must be aware of the endocrine system. Then the glands. Okay. Then the ethylene has a role in ripening of fruit. That is why it's used very famously. Okay. Now, endocrine system has got several glands that we need to understand: pineal, hypothalamus, pituitary, thyroid and parathyroid, thymus, adrenal, pancreas, ovary, and testis. So you need to know all of these. A Kaushal, you might be asked to draw the female reproductive system. You might. Okay. Suman, I can't use Hindi right now because we have students who are even from South India, right? So that is why we don't want them to lose on something. Okay. Now, let us try to understand the types of question that comes. Somewhat, you don't have any practical questions in this chapter. Hypothalamus, Parul, is a part of brain that regulates pituitary gland on a whole new level. Hypothalamus secretes certain hormones that form the secretions of the pituitary gland, the posterior pituitary, like vasopressin is one of the hormone, and then you have oxytocin as another hormone. Then you have uh, hypothalamus controls the anterior pituitary via several secretions, via certain releasing or inhibiting hormones. Okay, so you can say that pituitary is largely controlled by the hypothalamus, and pituitary controls the body in so many respects. So, hypothalamus is kind of a hub. Okay, Okay, cool. Then the structure of a neuron, you should be very, as I already told you, calcitonin ansh is a hormone that regulates blood calcium level, because calcium is very important for the contraction of muscles. It is very important for several neuromuscular junctions. That is why calcitonin is important. No, Palak, you won't be asked to draw the diagram of a brain. Okay, antidiuretic hormone ADH is also known as vasopressin, that is secreted by the posterior pituitary, but it originates in the hypothalamus. It leads to absorption of water in the kidney tubules, the nephrons. Okay, so it saves water. Now, the reflex arc, that is the reflex action, that is the immediate action without involving the CNS, is called the reflex action, and it follows an arc. So first you have the receptor, right? The receptor gives the signal to sensory neuron. Sensory neuron follows it inside the spinal cord, right? There you have an interneuron. Okay, and then you have a motor neuron which carries the command, and then the motor neuron carries the command to the effector organ where the command is executed. Okay, so this is the entire flow. Now let us go and try to understand what questions came in the last exam. So in the last board exam we have gustatory receptors and olfactory receptors, right? So who will answer me this particular question? Hormones are not present inside neuron, Farheen. They are present outside. Yes, they might ask. They might ask that, Vishesh. Okay, so gustatory receptor, yes, the olfactory is nose, and then tongue has the gustatory receptors, right? So then we can be asked about the, see, as I said, the neuron can come in various ways, right? Afferent and efferent, Harshit. Sensory can be called afferent and motor can be called efferent. Okay, so the flow chart of the neuron. So dendrites gives the information to the cyton, right? So cyton, and cyton follows it to, what should I fill here? Right? The axon. Great, that's correct. And then axon follows it to the end point of neuron. From there, it is passed to maybe the next neuron or to a muscle. Now, name the hormones that are secreted by the following endocrine glands. And I'm very sure that you people will answer me these, right? So, thyroid gland, come on, guys. Answer me this one. The very famous thyroxine, right? And another hormone, calcitonin, is also related to this, right? So parathyroid gland releases parathyroid hormone and calcitonin, which are involved with calcium metabolism, whereas thyroxine released by thyroid gland is required for the metabolism. So it increases the BMR, right? Then we have the pituitary gland, which is also called the master gland in many cases, and it has a bunch of neurons that are released, right? So we have the oxytocin, we have the vasopressin, we have the ACTH, and we have several hormones by the pituitary. Then pancreas comes two important hormones, and who will give me the name? Yes, so we have insulin and glucagon. That's very correct, guys. Insulin and glucagon, right? So we have those two important from these two. Why is pituitary gland called the master gland? Shreyas, that's a very good question, because pituitary controls several glands or several functions of the body. Because of that, so it's called the master gland. So see, it releases FSH, that will control the ovaries. It releases LH, it releases ACTH, it releases TSH, and all of these hormones are controlling some of the other gland. For example, TSH will control the thyroid gland. ACTH will control the adrenal cortex, the cortex region of the adrenal gland. LH, luteinizing hormone, will contain the testis and ovary. FSH will have also some first functions related to the reproductive organs. Right? Yeah, follicle stimulating hormone. That's correct. Supreme. So as we see, several glands, several major glands of our body is controlled by the pituitary. Okay, that see, Sonika, no doubt that hypothalamus contains several starting functions, but since pituitary controls the major glands, that is why we call it. What is BMR? BMR is the basal metabolic rate. Okay. This is just a session where we tell you what you need to study. We are not going into details of each and every gland. Okay, that is why I'm not going into detail. Pancreas acts as a dual gland, pretty, because it's an exocrine and an endocrine gland as well, right? So the endocrine function is because of the insulin and glucagon. So now remember what's an exocrine and endocrine. Endocrine is where it's no ducts are involved, right? So they are released directly into the blood, where an exocrine has ducts. So pancreas secretes several pancreatic enzymes which are a part of the digestion part, right? So that is why we say that the pancreas is a dual gland. It has both exocrine and endocrine functions. Yes, correct. Diagrams, Palak, see, neuron is the one diagram that can come. Then we have the reflex arc. These two diagrams can come at any point of time. Cerebrofluid, Srivastav Mridul, cerebrospinal fluid. I think you are talking about CSF, cerebro spinal fluid, which is a fluid inside the brain coverings that are called meninges. Those fluids act as a shock absorber. The first main reason is they act as a shock absorber. Second, they form a medium of transport as well. Okay, so the blood does not enters inside the meninges. Rather, everything diffuses into the CSF and from CSF to the brain cells. Right. So they absorb the shock. They protect the brain. They also form the medium of transport between the blood and that. Okay, sympathetic and parasympathetic arches. See, sympathetic is the stimulatory. Parasympathetic is bringing everything to the normal. So when you have let's say the 3F, right? So fright, flight, fright. So when sympathetic will make sure that you have the energy that you need. For example, you need to take a long run. So sympathetic system will increase your heartbeat. It will dilate your pupils so that you can see maximum, so that you can work out maximum. It will divert the blood away from the digestive system so that you can utilize it. Whereas parasympathetic will again bring everything to the normal. Okay, reflex action is a phenomena, and reflex arc, Sonika, is the path followed by the stimulus and its action. Okay, harsh hypothalamus releases hormones like oxytocin and vasopressin, which are released via the posterior pituitary. It also releases certain inhibiting and releasing hormones that affects the anterior pituitary. CNS is brain and spinal cord, where the integration task is happening. Whereas PNS is everything outside it, the nerves, or I should say the bunch of neurons or nerves that are outside the CNS, and CNS is the PNS. Okay, they conduct everything to the CNS and take the commands from the CNS. Okay, now let's take a dig at the sample paper questions that were put by the CBSC this year, right? So, pertaining to endocrine system, what will you interpret if the sullen neck in the people living in the hills? So, if people are living in hills, they might not have appropriate amount of iodine. Now, if you don't have appropriate, sorry guys, just excuse me a moment. So, if you don't have iodine, the first thing that's affected is the secretion of thyroxine, right? And thyroxine is affected, because of that you will have this particular problem, right? Goitre, yes, the name is goitre. Oversecretion of growth hormone takes place during childhood. Very important, and this is a question which maximum people do wrong. Why? Because they confuse the two important things. So GH, the growth hormone, can be secreted in excess amount, which is called hyper, okay, activity in childhood and in adult stage, right? So if it happens in the childhood, the answer is gigantism, right? So people are generally larger, very huge. They are like very tall, 2 meters, even more than that. Adult, when that happens, it leads to the extension of the extremities. That means the bones at the ends will elongate, be more very large, and that leads to a problem called acromegaly or gorilla like face. Okay. Okay, cool. So that is the no, kulkarni, no, that is not at all true. It has got nothing to do with that. This is a disorder. Okay. Now, facial hair develops in boys at the age of 13. Now we know that that has got to do with the hormones that are secreted by the testes, right? The testosterone, or collectively called androgens. There are several male sex hormones. Testosterone is one of them, and collectively we call them androgens. Okay, so here also people get confused between androgens and testosterone. So remember, androgen is a class, testosterone is one example. Okay, so that's the basic difference between them. Height depends on as you have studied in the heredity and evolution chapter, genes regulate many things, many characters. So height is also regulated by that. Acromegaly sonica is when the adults, they have hyper secretion of the growth hormone. That is when it happens. Okay, now what should we remember in this particular chapter while we are answering the questions? See, certain things are. See, hyper and hyposecretion of gland is harmful because most of the time when that happens, we stand with diseases. Let's take an example of insulin, for example, Shivastava. Insulin, if it's secreted more, what's the job of insulin? It regulates the blood glucose level, right? So, what will happen if we have more of insulin? Diabetes, right? So every hormone has got to regulate something. If you secrete more or less of it, the regulation that it generally does is lost, right? And when blood sugar level in the blood is not normal, what happens? We start getting diseases. So everything is related with every hormone, especially, is has got to do something or the other. Okay, now important points to remember while we are answering questions. Very important point. People forget to answer according to the marks. If it's a two marker question and there are not 3 points in your answer is not sufficient. So if I have a two marker question, I should have at least 3 points. Now what people do is they write big sentences and 3 sentences are done. I'm happy. No, this is wrong. If I mean 3 points, that means three separate pieces of information. Okay, for example, let's talk about endocrine glands. So first I'll say what are endocrine glands. They're glands that secrete, that give their secretions in the blood, right? Then I will say that, okay, they generally act slowly. Okay, the effect is slow. Okay, and the third I will give, third point that I can give about endocrine gland are probably mm, well, we can give examples at the fourth point. So see, generally marks wise answering is very important. So if you have 2 mark question, answer 3 points and give examples. Very important. Okay, now answer with diagrams or flowcharts wherever possible. So if you are showing the action of a hormone, please Make sure you're drawing a flow chart. Okay. Parthenocopy and seed dormancy. Sonika asked this question when we will discuss the how do organisms reproduce. In that chapter, we'll be discussing. Hyper is supreme whenever something is done more. Hypo is something is done less. Exactly. Answer to the point. In CBSE, especially certain times, children get carried away and they start, you know, writing big sentences. That's not at all needed. You have to answer to the point. Vasectomy, tubectomy. The see again, it's with how the organisms reproduce. Vasectomy is when you cut and ligate the vas difference. Tubectomy, uh, tubectomy is when you do the same thing with fallopian tube. Vasectomy is with vas difference. Okay, flow chart as in like how a hormone affects something. For example, if I am trying to do ADH, I will write ADH and then I will draw an arrow and I will say that will do what? That will increase the absorption of water in nephrons. So I will write this. So this is what a flow chart is, right? So and from where it is released? It's released from the pituitary. So I will write a sentence, but I will also draw this. So by seeing this, teacher will get an idea. Okay, yes, it's very very clear cut that he knows it, right? So make sure you're drawing flow charts. Okay, and very importantly, guys, if you don't practice questions, that is a problem. Okay, a melatonin hormone or Srivastav has to do with maintaining the circadian rhythm, that which regulates the timing of your body. Okay, so make sure you're doing all of that. Okay, guys. So that brings us to the end of the session. Make sure when you go to your exam halls, you have done enough of revision, you have done enough of practice, because without that, don't enter the exam hall. If you're going for a war unprepared, chances are that you won't get the full marks. So this is all that we can extend right now, and you can obviously reach us via several other methods, right? So here are links that we have forwarded for the top 100 questions or top, and to reach us in a more perfect manner. Okay. Okay, guys. So bye bye, this is me signing off, and we'll meet again in the next session. Bye, guys.